Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We truly do appreciate it. And welcome to our October 25th, 22 business meeting. You all can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We are joined by 7 of our trustees, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy P. Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Dr. Ted Fulton, our assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Luis Montero, our district legal counsel, Mr. Edwin McCarthy, our district clerk, Mr. Suzanne Megan, and as always, our great student rep, Ms. Emily Kemp. As always, there is always 2 opportunities for the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. First is just before the board takes up its agenda, and the second follows disposition of all agenda items. As always, if you'd like to speak tonight, we ask that you come to the podium. You must be an eligible voter of the Bayfield Blue Point School District. If not, you must be voted in by a majority vote of the school board. We don't want time. We ask that you keep those comments to approximately 3 minutes. As always, for the community's convenience, the Board of Ed meeting is taped and live streamed and posted to the website after the meeting. And if you want to follow the school district on Twitter, you can follow us at BBP Schools. And if you want to follow Dr. Harney, as always, you can always follow him at BBP Schools. So we do have a lot of recognitions tonight. We're so thankful you guys can join us. But at this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney so we can start. Thank you, Dr. Harney.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Good evening to everyone. It is great to see everybody here, especially a number of our students. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. We really do appreciate it. And thank you also to everybody who joined us. So last week actually was school board's recognition week. And we did not have a meeting last week, so we wanted to do it tonight. So I'm going to start beginning by, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fulton. We have a number of presentations for the members of our board. But first, I would like to just say thank you on behalf of myself, our administrative team, and the community. The amount of time that you put into the district, it cannot be measured. So I really just want to thank you for everything that you do for the community here, for your constant support, and that just everything that you do for all of us. So again, I cannot thank you enough. So thank you for everything. You definitely make my job that much easier. So thank you. With that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Fulton, who I know is going to bring up a number of people, a number of our principals here and our students here. So we have a couple of things that we'd like to share with you. So with that, Dr. Fulton.
Good evening. So as Dr. Harney mentioned, last week was Board of Education Recognition Week. So first I'd like to call up Ms. Velasco from Blue Point Elementary School.
Dr. Fulton. At this time, I'm going to invite out some very special students from Blue Point Elementary. They were chosen because they are drivers of their bus, responsible students, kind friends, leaders in the building. So we have Scarlett from kindergarten, Nehar from first grade, Tommy from second grade, Ryan from third grade, Duke from fourth grade, and Connor from fifth grade. And we're going just to read a little poem for you.
Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for caring about BPE. Thank you for supporting our goals. Thank you for being a trusted trustee. Thank you for putting education first.
Thank you for working around the clock.
Thank you for all that you do. You're awesome. You're the best. You rock.
Next up, we would like to call up Ms. Van from Academy Street Elementary.
Thank you. And I have with me today Billy and Howard, who I think are becoming professional presenters for Academy these days. So Billy, why don't you come?
There are no tricks. You are a treat. Thank you for the
Great job. And it is something that all of the children at Academy speak over the next couple of days.
And I'd like to welcome up Ms. Elaine Dugan from Sylvan Avenue Elementary School.
Hi, it's great to see you all. I have 7 wonderful students here from Sylvan Avenue, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Alexa O'Neill. I'm in Miss Malloy's 5th grade class at Sylvan Avenue. Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm in 5th grader Amelia Riggio. I'm in Miss Najacia's class. Hi, I am Bryce Garrity. I'm also. Hi, I am Brooke Garrity in Miss Rydell's 3rd grade class at Sylvan Avenue. Hi, I'm Bryce Garrity. I'm also in 3rd grade at Sylvan Avenue and in Mrs. Rydell's class. Hi, I am Landon Squirtle. I am in Miss Gorman's 3rd grade class at Sylvan Avenue. These are my siblings, Leighton and Maddox. We are here tonight to thank all of you for being the community leaders of Lakeville Bluewood School District. We know that you work very hard to give best experiences to BBP students. We also know that even though the community elects you to the board, you volunteer your time to be the Board of Education members. Your hard work makes BBP a great place to go to school. Thank you for giving us terrific teachers, great technology, to making learning fun. Field trips and many opportunities to use our imaginations and to be creative in our classes. Speaking of creative, this year our amazing art teacher, Miss Skater, came with a great idea to show each of all of you how much we appreciate all that you do for our schools. This year, all of the students worked with Miss Skater to surprise you with this painting. Mrs. Skater painted the tree, but each of Sylvan Avenue's 306 students is represented on this tree. Each leaf that you see is formed from the fingerprint of a Sylvan Avenue student. All of Sylvan Avenue, we are all individuals with kind hearts and helping hands, like all the individual leaves that form a beautiful tree. We practice kindness each day and use our hands to work together to better our school and community. Thank you for leading the way. We think you are unbelievable and appreciate all that you do to make people place to learn and grow. I was T10.
Thank you, guys.
Next, I'd like to call up Mr. John Druskowitz from this school, and Mr. Robert Haas from the high school.
On behalf of Mr. Haas and myself, we want to thank you guys for all your support. The last couple of years have been very difficult for all of us, but knowing that you guys supported us in everything we do, it means a tremendous amount. So we are giving you two things. We're giving you the gift of music, a joint ensemble with high school and middle school musicians, in addition to a nice bevy of chocolate-covered pretzels from the chocolatier. So don't share them tonight when you go home. Keep them all for yourself.
So thank you very much for everything you do, and I guess you can come back, take your seat so you can enjoy the music.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Board of Education Appreciation Week. We sincerely thank you for all you do for our district and your support for the arts program here in Bayport Blue Point. To thank you for your service, we have 3 musical performances for you this evening, prepared by several of our extracurricular performing ensembles. First, we have our middle school and high school jazz bands combined together, performing the piece Leapfrog by Joe Garland and Leo Corday, arranged by Paul Cook, led by Mr. Sarling and Mr. Hurst. Please give them a round of applause. be the featured soloist with them, but I'm not. Next, we have our high school jazz choir singing Feeling Good by Leslie Breesis and Anthony Newley. This performance features solos by Julia McCormick and Nate Lennon, and of course it's led by Miss Golaski. Please give them a round of applause. And lastly, in our tribute to our appreciation to our Board of Education, we have our high school jazz band that will be performing Spinning Wheel by Blood, Sweat, and Tears under the direction of Mr. Sarling. Again, thank you for all your service. We really appreciate all you do.
Let's give another round of applause for all of our musicians.
Just want to thank everyone for the nice words. Thank the elementary schools for your gifts. We truly appreciate it. We really want to thank all the students tonight, all the staff for everything they do, and all the parents for coming tonight. But honestly, it's a pleasure to be up here. We're lucky to be a small part of this great district. So thank you so much for allowing us to be here, and we're just happy to be a small part of this wonderful community. Thank you guys so much. So before we leave, we do have a few more awards to give out, but we understand that you have to go now. Totally up to you. But we do have some community service awards to give out with Dr. Fulton and Dr. Harney, and then we're going to let everyone go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mellon. Again, I would just like to thank all of our students for coming out tonight, our principals for coming out tonight, the music department. I really would just like to thank you. And again, I would just really like to thank the board one more time for all your support. So thank you for everything that you've done. So the next part is we do have other students we'd like to recognize tonight. So again, thank you for coming out. We have our Community Service Recognition Awards. So with that, we're going to turn this over to Dr. Fulton.
And again, we have a wonderful number of students that are being honored for different levels of community service. So with that, I'd like to re-invite back up Mr. Robert Haas from high school.
Thank you, Dr. Fulton and Dr. Harney. Community service, as everyone knows, community service within Bayport Blue Point is one of the hallmarks of our community. So last year at the high school, we wanted to start a program that recognized the students for their efforts throughout the course of the school year. And they don't do this for coming up here at a board meeting to be recognized and get a certificate. They do it to help out our community and to help those in need. So I really congratulate all of the students who participate in it. So at this time, I'm going to call, we have 4 categories. The first is Community Service Recognition Certificate. This is for students who, over the course of last school year, put in 10 to 19 hours of community service. So when I call your name, please come up, and then we're going to line up all the way across the front. Dr. Fulton will have your certificate. Ryan Batchmore. Alexa Damiano. Was in music, I don't know if she's come back out. Sophia Diaz. Carly Farrell. Brenna Hassett. Madeline Jensen. Lauren Kelly. Christina Lynn, Emma Novak, Kristen Tavera, Leanna Bonbon, and Chloe Bonbon. I think a lot of them are out performing community service right now. So the next group is our Community Service Bronze Certificate, and these students completed 20 to 29 hours of community service last year. We have Olivia Davis, Ben Fries, Jillian Kaler, Ellie Hall, Tyler Makeley, Julia Powers, Isabel Ryer, Ella Silvestro, and Arthur Stankiewicz. The next is our Community Service Silver Certificate. These students completed 30 to 39 hours of community service last year. Amelia Borneman, Nina Brownlee,
Quentin Carroll. Max Gallagher. CJ Conant. And George Rogers. I would like to call up Alexa Damiano. She's in the Community Service Recognition School here. She's playing in the game. And finally, the last group we have are students who are receiving the gold certificate. These students performed over 40 hours of community service throughout the course of last school year. We have Kate Anglam. Kyle Bancroft. Marissa Carney. Ethan Christopherson. Logan Cerrone. Matthew Decatur. Christopher Ford. Leah Richard. And Amanda Woods. So congratulations, and most of all, it's very appropriate with this being Board of Education Recognition Night for us here. These students, just like the Board of Education, have given their time to our community. So once again, congratulations. There's over 1,000 hours of community service up here. So job well done.
One round of applause for our students. Thank you for your service to our learning community.
All right, guys, thank you so much. At this time, if you want to go home, we would definitely understand. If you want to stay, we definitely appreciate that as well. But thank you so much for coming tonight. We truly appreciate it. How about one more round of applause for all of our award winners? Before we open it up for community or old business, we wanted to pass it over to our student rep, Ms. Denton. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for having me. As we approach the beginning of the holiday season, our high school will be hosting a few festive events to celebrate Halloween. This Friday, the 28th, the Drama Club will be holding its annual haunted house at 7:30 p.m. All visitors should enter through the main entrance/cafeteria entrance. There is a $5 entry fee, and all proceeds will go towards local families this holiday season. Additionally, this Saturday, the 29th, the high school will be hosting the annual Safe Halloween Trunk or Treat event, also run by the Drama Club. The event will run from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the gym parking lot. I'd like to congratulate the Drama Club on their recent performances. This past weekend, the Drama Club, under the advisement of Ms. Everhard and Mr. McNulty, performed a handful of different shows. Congratulations to all those involved and for the efforts made to create an exciting Halloween weekend for the Bayport community. This is a big week for fundraisers. Keep an eye out for updates on the high school Instagram. The senior class of 2023 is running a Thanksgiving pie and baked goods fundraiser with White Coast Farms. There are various breads, cookies, pies, soups, and more. Order forms can be picked up in the library, the main office, or found online. Payment can be made via cash, check, or Venmo. Orders must be turned in November 10th and will be available for pickup the week of Thanksgiving. The SEPTA is hosting a fundraiser with Jersey Mike's on Thursday and Friday this week. Use the promo code SEPTA on your online order and include a minimum of a $3 donation, 100% of which will go towards the SEPTA for a free regular size sub. The freshman class of 2026 is running a class shirt fundraiser. The link can be accessed online. Please take note that the apparel has the year 2026 written on it. The girls varsity lacrosse team is holding a seat cushion fundraiser. The link can also be accessed online. The Ecology Club is fundraising in support of the organization Sea Turtles. They are aiming to protect sea turtle hatchlings. Every $1 raised can help save up to 10 baby sea turtles. The fundraiser will be open through November 17th. The Girl Scout troops are holding a toiletry drive in memory of Gabby Petito. Donations can be made in the main lobby of the high school. For the duration of this week, the Interact Club will continue to host its supply drive for our local animal shelter. Collection boxes are located in the main and gym lobbies. Various accepted supplies include, but are not limited to, dog, cat, and small animal food, litter, bedding, toys, treats, paper towels, etc. In regards to other announcements, this week is Red Ribbon Week. Every year there are over 17,000 drunk driving-related deaths. SAD is supporting a district-wide Wear Red Day this Friday to promote living life drunk-free. They invite everyone in the community to participate. The 2022-2023 high school yearbook is in production. Reach out and submit any photos that you want included. They are also available for order online. Every senior student should report to room 327 in the high school at some point this week to sign a rock. The rocks will be placed together for the cover of this year's yearbook. School picture makeups and retakes will be held in the auditorium lobby on November 16th and 17th. Senior portrait makeups will be held solely on November 17th in the same location. Students should go down during a free period or lunch period. No passes are required. This year, the high school production will be SpongeBob and Musical. Production began this week on Monday and Tuesday with auditions. Callbacks will be tomorrow, and the cast list is projected to be posted on Friday. Last week, the Community Expo was held at Bayport Flower House. It was a great event that produced a lot of positive feedback from those who attended. The Community Expo featured many of our Bayport Blue Point students. There were a variety of different performers, including Cadence Corcoran, Alexandra Galachos, Logan Cerrone, Early Deutscher, and the high school jazz band. The high school student art league ran a face painting station and a variety of other activities that were able to bring joy to the younger kids of our community. Those who attended had the ability to walk around the beautiful autumn venue to interact with and learn about local charities and businesses. I'd like to thank Cadence Corcoran for assisting me with this portion. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the event myself. Lastly, I'd like to congratulate all of our high school sports teams moving on to playoffs. Both boys and girls cross country competed in divisions today. Our girls cross country team was undefeated this season. Our field hockey team was just named division champions for the third year in a row. The rain didn't slow them down in their first playoff game against Middle Place. They took home the win. Our varsity football team is currently 7-0. Their playoff game will be next Friday at 5 p.m. at the high school. The boys and girls volleyball teams, girls soccer, and girls tennis will all be or continue to be engaged in the playoffs. Congratulations to all the successes this fall in every aspect of our district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stan. That was great. I don't think we need Dr. Harney's update anymore for that. So thank you so much. That was very thorough and appreciate it. Congratulations to all the athletic teams moving on. At this time, we'll open up to any community, new or old business. Before we do, I would just say Dr. Harney was given quite a few questions last time. Dr. Harney looked into it, and he's going to provide some of these answers tonight. If you have anything in regards to the conversation around the enrollment committee, the board's going to have a discussion after Dr. Harney's superintendent report. So if you want to hold those to the end, we would appreciate it. But if you want to come to the mic now and talk about it, you're welcome as well. So anybody with any new or old business they want to bring before the board, Dr. Harney. Not hearing any? Dr. Harney? All right tonight, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, Emily, you can have this seat. It's all yours. So thank you for that. Just a couple of updates. So just before I get into kind of doing follow-up to the enrollment presentation, just a couple important dates for people to remember. As Emily talked about this weekend, the high school is doing a couple of fundraisers, so I won't repeat that. But our next board meeting, just so you're aware, is November 15th. So it's a few weeks away, and in between that time, just remember November 8th is school is closed for students for Election Day and Superintendent's Conference Day for staff, and then November 11th is Veterans Day. So just important dates for everyone to remember. Also, I really would just like to thank everybody. Homecoming was wonderful. We lucked out. The weather was beautiful. The game was great. The Hall of Fame, everything about the day really was what Bay Port Blue Point is all about. So I'd just like to thank everybody for all their efforts for that day. So I guess where I will start is I was asked, or Mr. Miller had taken a couple of questions from the last time that I was asked about, so I will go through them a little bit. One of the questions was related to the 3 studies or updates that we had done on the demographics. So, and I'm really just going to talk about my time as sitting in this seat as the superintendent. So during my time, I did have 3 demographics. One was done, and then they were kind of updated on 2 separate other occasions. So the cost for the 3 of them, total cost was $9,500. So that was one of them that was asked about me. The second question was total number of students with IEPs, 504, and AIS services. I wasn't really asked on how specific they wanted the numbers, but I do have them. Again, some students could be double counted, so that's one of the things I'd be a little bit wary of. So I'll do 504s and IEPs first. So for Academy Street, it's 2.6%. For 504s, for IEPs, it's 14.6%. For Blue Point, it's 3.9% for 504s and 28.7% for IEPs. And again, this is something I had talked about during the presentation. As I said, we do send students to Blue Point. Sylvan is 5.9% for 504s. IEPs is 8.7%. The middle school is 8.1% for 504s and 17.6% for IEPs. And then the high school is 8.1 for 504s as well, and then 18.1 for IEPs. And then from AIS standpoint, I did it total by the building. How it was given to me. Again, I'd like to thank Ms. Doyle for her help, assistance with this, and our building principals for putting the time to provide this to me, so thank you for that. So at, make sure I have the right school here. At the high school, in terms of students receiving AIS services, it's 15.4%. And just be aware as the numbers sometimes increase as the year goes on, and then sometimes you have also students that come out. So the number can fluctuate a little bit depending on the day you're asking for this information. Middle school, currently, it was 13.1%. Blue Point, it was 27.4%. Academy was 37%, and then Sylvan was 20.2%. So those are the questions that were given to me last time that I wanted to bring that information forward. I believe I answered them. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hardy. We're all aware this is a very sensitive and personal topic for everyone, and there's a lot of different opinions and perspectives here. But we did talk about what's the likelihood of a community survey or a community vote. So go to our legal representation, Mr. McCarthy. What's your opinion on if we should do a community vote or if that's something that's allowed?
Well, pursuant to the Education Law, Section 1709, the Board of Education is empowered and entrusted to essentially control and manage the educational affairs of the district. So it's our opinion that this type of decision in terms of reconfiguration of the district, specifically the elementary schools, is squarely within the statutory purview of the Board of Education. Additionally, the Commissioner of Education of the State Education Department has consistently advised that placing propositions on ballots concerning matters that do not require voter approval in the first instance is not advisable, not condoned, has been deemed an undesirable practice, and should be discouraged in all respects. So to answer your question, Mr. Miller, in regards to whether or not this can be put out to a community referendum, at least initially, this is something that is within the purview of the Board of Education pursuant to statute. So as such, it's not the subject matter or of the type of subject matter that can be placed out to vote a referendum. With that said, the Commissioner of Education has consistently held that inviting community input, putting out advisory surveys from the Board of Education and the district is perfectly permissible. So in conclusion, we would initially advise that because this is within the purview of the Board of Education, it's not subject to a voter referendum, number one, and number two, the Commissioner has held against such type of practices because the Commissioner of Education has essentially held that to do so is for the Board of Education to shirk its statutory responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Any trustee questions about that?
And not necessarily a question, but just based on what you're saying, Mr. McCarthy, it sounds like we would be able to have a survey of the community to get community feedback, but it's not advisable that we put it on a formal ballot. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, exactly right. The Commissioner of Education does not discourage community input through methods and means such as surveys or other public forums or presentations. So, the board could be assisted in their ultimate statutory responsibility to make a conclusion on this type of matter with a survey or with additional community input. But our analysis is that it's not advisable to place it before the community for a voter referendum.
Any other questions from trustees? Not hearing any, I will open up to the trustees for would we like to look into the feasibility of a survey? Or any discussion, questions about the oral presentation in general? Ms. Rowe?
Thank you. I guess my question is really to get more insight about whether or not we should even do a survey based on what's been said already. And my second question would be, how are we addressing the issues proposed on making the buildings change? Those issues are still going to exist, even if we don't do a survey or move forward with the enrollment recommendations.
In regards to your first one, or your second one, Dr. Horny will take the issues proposed. The first one is really up to the board. If they want to do a survey, I obviously have my personal opinion, so I'll come back to it in a minute, but it's really up to the board if this is something we want to do. We're open to a survey. The next question is, whatever the results are, does that change your mind personally? Because at the end of the day, each trustee is going to have to vote in the direction they feel if there's going to be a change in the school district. So I think that's a question you have to ask yourself. What would you need to see in a survey to change your mind? So I'll open it up for anybody who wants to talk about the survey in general.
I like the idea of a survey because it's important that the decision reflects stakeholders. But I will ask the question, I think Mrs. Rowan was alluding to. Would there be, if we do nothing, if we were to decide to do nothing at this point or go a survey, would anybody be impacted? I know we're talking about changing kids based on grade leveling, but if we did nothing, would we have to make any changes to special education or redistrict in any way, potentially in the future? And would we have to change anything?
Yeah, so these are great questions, and this is stuff that the committee has been really looking at for over 3.5 years. So one of the things we had talked about is if you go back to the presentation that was done in January or probably January of 2020, when the committee had done the original presentation. At that time, it was very much finance driven, I guess I would say at that time. So that was kind of the original piece of that. And then if you saw that any type of savings that we were talking about at that time, because at that time we were talking about savings, the district had come out of a number of years where we were operating with a deficit, if you recall. prior to, probably until 2018, probably then we had a couple of years of a deficit. So we were looking at other ways that, hey, maybe if we needed to look to save some money, that was the way. And then also, that was really when we started to take a look at the enrollment piece. And then after we had done that presentation, a lot of feedback from that night, and our committee the members, is that, well, what are talking about all the, and I continue to call them the pros and the challenges of that leadership come up. So that's where the committee had made some of their latest discussions, and that's why you saw some of that in the last presentation. And just before I said that, just so everyone knows, the presentation is on the website, and if anyone out there did not see the video that night, we did cut that part of the presentation so people could just look at the video. It is on the website as well. This way people wouldn't have to go through the entire board meeting. That was one of the things that I thought we would try to do for our community to make it a little bit easier for people. But to answer your question, one of the other things that came out within the committee, and you kind of heard, if you were listening to some of the numbers tonight, is, guess it was probably, and I think it was either when I was my first year as a high school principal, we had started when co-teaching was first put into place, it was placed into Blue Point Elementary. And at that time, and still is, Blue Point Elementary was, just from a population standpoint, the smallest of schools. As the years have gone on and enrollment has dropped, even at Blue Point, though Blue Point's had the least amount, they looked at it from a historical standpoint. 10 years ago they were at 256, 260, and now they're around 226 as of today, because I was looking at it. You have the population or the percentage of students who are receiving special education services at Blue Point, it's a little bit over 28%. So that does have an impact on the building. Also, the piece that we've talked about is when you're looking at various services, when you're talking about AIS services, when you're talking about ELL services, or when you're talking about special ed services, one of the things that we were talking as a committee is if you had students that were together, you could change the group, right? So you'd be able to group more students together. Also, you would also be able to have a similar population across all the various buildings, which was a big part of what we were talking about. So I'm not giving you a lot of background information, but to answer the original question is, I do believe that if we were not to change the configurations, we would have to take a look at where some of our programs are placed, which would impact students, and would also impact the enrollment at whatever school we're looking at that time. So I'll use special ed for that case. If we were to take a look at shifting the program, which we are currently working on side by side, because we do believe that that is something we'll do a presentation on as well, that we would need to do something, because one is like we've said it, and you've heard Dr. Fulton say, you've heard me say, it is just from the how you have your subgroups and where they're located right now, and the percentage of students in those subgroups, the district will most likely be cited in a number of those areas. And that is something that we are concerned about going forward. So the answer is, I do believe we have to look at something.
Thank you, Dr. Barney. Mr. Johnson?
I guess what you're saying is either way, we might have to, I guess that's my concern, is it a vote to keep kids consistent going to the same school versus changing their schools across the board versus a smaller population leaving the school and the classmates they're at to go to a different school? I mean, these are the concerns I have, I guess, on all of this.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other trustee questions? Ms. Pinzaro?
Just have a question about, I guess, the feasibility or the timeline of the survey. I mean, like Mr. Johnson said, I'm not opposed to the idea of a survey to get some community input. I think that's really important. Obviously, the issue is bigger than the 7 of us here at the table, but I also have concerns about having this be something kind of lingering in the community consciousness for months. So if we were to decide that we'd like to do a community survey, is that something that can be done relatively quickly? And do you think we can do that cost effectively and get that data back relatively quickly, or is that not really feasible?
A couple of things that I'd have to do a little research, so I don't have all the answers for you right now. The creation of a survey is probably not that difficult. I would probably attach, if the community would watch it, is the presentation that we've given, or they can come, at least, that's one of the reasons why I tried to make just a presentation, or we can send it to the community. Just one of the things that plays into this, though, is just remember is my access to the community is really through Connect Ed. Those are the families that we have that attend the Bayport Blue Point School District. So we would have to look at a way to get the information also to the other families of the community as well, because they may have younger students who aren't in the schools yet, or just, they are part of the community, so I'd want to include them. So I'd have to kind of work with probably syntax and see how we do that. I'd also have to try to figure out a way, that getting the link or however we do it, it's done through a Google form, which I have to see if that's a possibility. That would be the cheapest of the ways, if I can go through a Google form. Though if I had to use a company, I would say syntax most likely, then there would probably be an additional cost to that. And then also, how you're trying to limit the number of responses per person. That would be something that we would take into consideration as well, as you're trying to do that, so that everyone gets their one vote. And would we do it by family, or would we do it by individual? And I think that would be a discussion that I'd want to know how you'd want to pursue that. I would imagine you'd want to get as much possible, but I'd have to try to figure that out as well. So that's what I'd want to do some homework.
Any other questions? Ms. Connor?
I would be amenable to a community survey, since we can't put it out for a referendum, because while we have heard from passionate individuals, they're the individuals who are able to make the time to be here in person and discuss with us or email. So while we might have a gut sense of how the community feels as a whole, I'd rather hear from more people to make sure that we're making the best decision. And assuming that we do put out a survey, I'd definitely like to have unique identifiers for responsibility, validity, so we don't have one person submitting the same response 100 times. And I would ask people when they respond to the survey to really take a look at the presentation that's available online and think about what configuration would provide the best experience for our students in terms of academics, social and emotional needs, support services, enrichment opportunities, balancing home and family concerns, while also not imposing an undue burden on the taxpayer. There's a lot to think about, and it's not an easy decision.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Any other trustees about the survey? I would just say, since I moved to this district, but this conversation comes up every 3 to 4 years. To me, it's never a positive one in town. I don't believe this community wants this. But I did think it was prudent to always keep it at the forefront, because there was always talk about millions of dollars of savings. I think we heard in our last conversation or our last presentation that that's not the case. So I think it's pretty clear to me that the community does not want this. I mean, I'm open to a survey. Just to be honest with you, I really didn't do that. It's a very tough spot for everyone to be up here. It's you want to do the right thing for kids, you want to do the right thing for the staff, you want to do the right thing for the community. It is hard to get a pulse on the community always, and you do your best up here. So that is not about me trying to pin myself against anyone up here. We're on the same team always. But that's just what I'm saying from my interaction with people over my time being in the school district. So I don't believe that is something we want here, but I do believe it is prudent to go through the numbers every couple of years to see is there a financial savings that can be had. And then at that time, I was always thinking maybe to go to community vote, so it wouldn't be us, it would be the community. I was a little taken back when I found out that that was not something that was recommended. So we do apologize for that over the years. I always thought I would be able to just put it out for a vote, let the community decide. It wouldn't be just the 7 of us. But I'm just going off on my interaction with people over the years, and that's not something that I perceive this community to want at all. I mean, it's very clear to me. So I'm open to a survey, but at the end of the day, I don't think the survey will change opinions. And my fear would be, how do you do a survey where only 1 or 2 people are in a household can return? I think that we're going to run into a problem with the validity of the survey being questioned no matter who, how many people respond. So I'll open it up to the board.
I would just like to make one comment, Mr. Miller, is one of the things you had talked about is we've been revisiting this every couple of years, and that is accurate. But I do believe it is my job to do our due diligence so that we can continue to bring this information forward.
Yeah, don't blame Dr. Harley.
I don't want the committee to feel like I want them to know that really what they're doing was a charge that was asked of them. So I really want to thank them because they have time. The other piece to it is, in the data that I was giving you over the 10 years, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, I'm the 4th superintendent. So you had 4 different people that I looked at. You had Dr. Mondiato, you had Neil Lederer sitting for a little bit, you had Dr. Patera and myself. So I think that's one of the reasons why you also see that as well as coming up, because you've had a number of different people sitting in this seat, and it continues to evolve. I would say over the last 6 years, I think we've been the most consistent. We've done the most in terms of the demographics. And that's not a knock on it, just I think we've had the time to go through it. So
Let's go back to what Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rowan said. I mean, a shifting of the programs, we know that may need to happen. So if this does not go through, we don't do a survey, or if we do a survey, we are very understanding of something needs to change with shifting of some programs in some school districts in the elementary. So we definitely understand that. We do love your recommendations on what that will look like and how we can continue to improve our elementary schools going forward. Because the last thing, we want to have the same experiences in all 3 elementary schools. I think that's always been a conversation over the years, and that has always been our goal.
And I think that will be something. So I currently have, and this is something we've had a conversation since last year, in terms of trying to at least provide other recommendations as well. So I have currently a special department who is working on something in terms of possible recommendation that they haven't even shared with myself or the administrators. So we'd like to do that, kind of have a discussion, and then I would try to bring it here to the public and themselves as well. And hopefully November 15th gives us a little time. That's about 3 weeks away, so that does give us a little time. But as I said, I do think that we would have to avoid some of the things that I think that will be coming with the state. I do think we would have to do something.
Any other conversation or discussion in general? Ms. Denton?
I know I'm not a trustee, but I have a suggestion for the survey. Is there any reason that the survey can't be done in person to show ID and proof of residence in the Bayport community, and that way we can avoid having people submit multiple responses?
You're asking Dr. Harney, right?
I guess whoever would like to answer it, Mr.
No, I'm sure
Harney.
you could. I mean, I don't want to speak for Dr. Harney at the school. I'm sure there could be something put in place for that.
That's an interesting idea, and I have to think about that.
I mean, it popped into my mind. I don't know if it's doable, but I figured I'd throw it
I
out
don't know how
there.
the manpower is, so I have to figure some of that stuff out. It's an idea.
Any other trustees speak to talk?
I know they say the youth shall lead the way. I feel like if Ms. Denton's suggestion could be put into place, that may solve my question about timeline and feasibility. So I don't know. I'm not sure what wheels are turning in Mr. McCarthy's head right now, but perhaps it's just my counselor's part, but I do feel like a survey is something that would be important. And I understand, Mr. Miller, what you're saying, that, the community members that have come to the meetings have shared fairly consistent opinions, but I just think that it's really important for us to recognize that there's a whole lot of community out there that can't make it I agree with you, Mr. Miller, because my gut is that, yes, this community has come out time and again and said, we don't want this. I was one of the 300 people, or however many this room holds, when Dr. Nunziato was here, and people were screaming that this is not what we want for our community. But I think it's worth it to do a survey to make sure that that is still the temperature in the room. And that is an amazing idea. I love that you're thinking outside of the box. I would obviously like us to consult with legal so it's not conflated with a vote that we're not advised to do. And I won't put you on the spot right now because you may or may not have that answer.
I do not. It's an excellent idea.
Any other trustee? Ms. Rowe?
Thank you. I like the idea too. Thank you, Emily. I would also I need to say this because I think it's been on my mind since our last meeting, that if the survey does go out and people are giving their final say and contributing their opinion, I would hope that those same people would be here again when we have to look at the problems that we do have to solve as a result of not moving buildings. So that's my request out there online, and if you're here in the audience.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. Any other trustee questions? So do we want a survey? Keep the question. Put a motion up, or we can talk about it and have a discussion. We want a survey. And we have a couple of discussion items, a couple of questions online. So let's open up community questions before we close it out. So Mr. Wong, if you want to go, I'm going to try to go through the YouTube questions as well.
Hello, everyone. Board. First of all, thank you all for your dedication and hard work. The presentation today was great. To honor you for your service, I do understand how much work it takes. This issue, as you just know, has been going on for a while. In 2012, 15 people came out, voiced their opposition, and in 2020, I said this, and I'm going to do it again, it doesn't make sense. Because the original charge of the community was to maintain current services in a fiscally responsible manner in regards to declining enrollment. We have seen now, over the presentation, the savings have gone down, and now it actually costs more to implement it if you do not try to staff. What we're hearing now is we should go to a survey of the community to ask on the topic without seeing the other options. This is what happens when you change the charge of the community midstream, right? The charge of the community reached that there are financial savings that we can do in the school. So let's talk about services. It was identified in the committee that there's a population in the community that's underserved. Can we recreate services? Can we find other ways in a fiscally responsible manner to better serve that population in the community? I think that needs to be studied more, and not just pigeonholed into a reconfiguration, right? Because there were certain options that were pulled out early on because they were not fiscally palatable compared to the other options. But now with that, maybe because the charge of the committee has changed a little bit, those might now be on the table compared to reconfiguration.
Thank you, Mr. Walms.
Hi, my name is Nora Garvey, and I'm the parent of a second grader at Blue Point Elementary School, and also an alumni of BPE and BBP. I have a couple of questions, but I'll try to go as quickly as I can. First question, Ms. Denton, do you babysit?
I do, actually.
I'm not sure. Let's get that one first. Okay, second, Mr. McCarthy. My question for you is a legal language question, a legal jargon question. You mentioned that it is inadvisable. You didn't use the word prohibited. Then Ms. Canay said can't about having a vote. Then Mr. Miller said not recommended. What is the final take on that?
The final take is what I previously indicated. The Commissioner of Education has essentially ruled that it's an undesirable practice, should be discouraged at all costs, that has specifically advised against placing propositions on the ballot concerning matters that do not require board approval, such as this, and has specifically indicated that there's other ways to receive community input. The Commissioner has also said that an advisory vote may imply voting determination of the ultimate issue submitted for consideration, even though such decision-making is squarely vested in the Board of Education itself. So those are the specific rulings of the Commissioner of Education. When I say that, I can't predict how a court would rule, but the Commissioner of Education has used that type of language in describing the undesirable practice of submitting something to the electorate when the statutory authority of the decision in the first instance is with the Board of Education.
I would say it kind of puts the board in that spot too as well, because if we put this up, then the next question will be, come budget time, why can't we put up the lights? And why can't we put up anything that is voted on?
I would assume then if they recommend using other practices to get community input, there would be examples of what we could do to get community input. As we're sitting here saying, do we want to do a survey? How would we do a survey for the population at large, not just members that are currently registered in the district, with their children registered in the district? So I would assume there is some sort of, something we can follow.
Well, the Commissioner of Education has allowed and stated that it's permissible, to have public surveys, public forums, advisory committees. And again, this community input is deemed by the Commissioner as advisory in nature because it's ultimately the decision of the Board of Education. So even if, I think the concern lies with the Commissioner of Education in putting out a decision in an issue that at the end of the day, it has to be made by the Board of Education. So even if you were to put this out to the community for a public vote, it would still, that reconfiguration would still require the ultimate approval or denial by the Board of Education. So anything that the district is doing in terms of an advisory committee, public forums, public presentation, surveys, are all for the edification of the Board of Education. So it ends with the Board of Education. The Commissioner and the Board of Education appreciate that input, but again, because there are certain enumerated powers within the education law, specifically the control and management of the district, the ultimate decision has to be made with the board.
My next question, I believe, is for Dr. Fulton. It might be Dr. Harney. I'm not sure which one of you kind of has more to do with the surveys that have gone out in the past. Obviously, I don't expect you to have the answer right now, but I would be curious to see the percentage-wise of participation of surveys that have gone out in the district over the last few years. I think we've done like a social and emotional learning one and a climate one. So I would be interested just to see how many people even bothered to do those.
It totally ranges. Some of the surveys that were around certain COVID things when we were talking about at that time were a little bit more, were better answer, I had more responses, that's the word, and then some of the other ones were very small. So it really depended on the survey. It really varied. One of them I got a very high, I forget which one it was, I got a very high though in terms of, I was just thinking about the number of students and the percentage of, because I was doing it by student, it's actually very high. And actually I think it was the one that was related to when we were talking about virtual. I needed to know, were you interested in that so I could plan all the numbers? So give credit to everyone, they really helped me out and said, okay, this is what it is. So I knew what we were planning. So that one was very well responded to.
And then my last question really comes down to as you had said when you were answering a question earlier, I believe it was Mr. Johnson's question about if we do nothing as far as grade clustering goes, who will be impacted? And you said kids will be impacted. Grade clustering will impact every child, K through 5th grade in this district. How many children are we talking about being impacted if we do nothing?
I think that's where I need to get more information. Right now, again, if we were just to talk about
is it half?
changes within, no, I don't think so. I mean, if you were talking about the other impacts, I'll just give you, and then really right now I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head. So if you're thinking about taking a look at altering or moving some of the special ed programs from Blue Point, okay? So you take a look at that, and as I said, right now that is 28% of their population, okay? So the question would be is, all right, are you moving it all, or are you just moving some of it, or are you doing it like on a yearly basis so you're not having a major impact? Those are all the things that I haven't even seen what they're trying to put together. The one thing, or the one request I've made with any recommendation is that if we were to make a move, let's say we were to move some of the co-teaching program, let's say we were to do that, to help us even out the numbers for a lower percentage at Blue Point, is that it would only impact the student one time. So this way, if they were, again, I'm making it up, if we were to move it to one of the other elementary schools because there's a larger base population of students, then that student, once they were moved, would only move there and then would never move again. Because that's the one of the things I want, because the same thing you're talking about, is that they would not move again. So if we were to move 20,
does it?
what's that?
I think you and I talked about like the way that Sable kind of deals with
Similar, that's
this
one of the
issue.
models we are looking at with some other ideas, but that is definitely one that we're looking at where the student were to start there, they would finish there, whatever school they would finish there as well.
And my last
The other
question
piece to that, but let me just play it on the reverse side, is you got to remember this, if you're moving 20%, okay, and that might be less than that, because I don't think you would take everybody, right? Is then, what are those classes? So it's possible that at Blue Point Elementary, in some grades, you might only have one section, depending on that. So that is a possibility as well. Or you say then, okay, we're going to look to create changing the lines, which is a bigger deal, because that may only be temporary, because it depends on what students are living there during that time on that changing the lines. Or you've seen some districts where they do these things they call buffer zones. That's also rough for people that are moving there because it could change every year. So those are some of the other concerns that you come up with those.
And my last question is just, I understand why we might be cited, but I don't actually understand what occurs when we are cited. Does it affect our state aid? Are we fined?
It very well could.
How bad would things have to get before it affects our state aid? I looked into surrounding districts, for instance, that have been cited. I think South Country's been cited, a couple of times. The state hasn't come in and taken over the district yet. So
Yeah, no, I wouldn't envision somebody coming in and taking us over. I don't want to misspeak though either. So
well, that is ultimately what can happen. The district is cited enough time, the New York State Department of Education basically takes over control of the district.
That's a total.
But
I'm not going
that's
in,
a
but I don't want
right.
people to say that Dr. Honey said that.
No. So I'm trying to understand, if we get cited over this for next year, what happens? Do we lose some money?
Typically what it will start with is we'll have to put together an improvement plan that will take up a tremendous amount of time. It will involve all the stakeholders, and you'll have to put in a plan in, and is how you will, it's like a corrective action, similar like we do with audits and stuff. The impact on state aid, I would have to do more research. I don't feel comfortable saying a number or giving a number because I don't know that it's done that.
But it could be a possibility over one citation.
Now, usually you start with a plan first,
Right.
I would imagine. And, I don't want people putting words in my mouth, so I don't believe so.
What will happen is if we get identified as a targeted school, because again, with ESSER reporting, it also deals with subgroups. So very specifically, you're talking about the subgroup of the education population that's in Blue Point. So what will occur is if you're a targeted school, you have to create an improvement plan, which does take up time, money, and resources with regards to manpower. And your improvement plan has to show and delineate how things are being done differently. So this is quite a commitment, and this is also something that, like, once you're in, you're targeted as a school. It's very difficult to get off that list. As a result, when people then would look up and say they look up the community of Blue Point Elementary School, that will now come up as a targeted school for improvement. And then, depending on the metrics with regards to performance in the state assessment, you then lean that forward. You have some schools, and COVID interrupted this, so I'm going to go before COVID, before the staff and testing. You have some buildings and some districts that have been identified for the state for a number of years. And then those interventions with your improvement plans, the expectations become more rigorous with regards to that. So once you get into that cycle, it's not a positive for the district, it's not a positive for the building, and it's something that will cost time, money, resources, and a specific plan to show that you're addressing to the areas of concern.
And they don't take it, there's no way for it to be taken into account that like, okay, on paper, Blue Point Elementary School, it's like an underperforming school, but hi, we're busing other kids from around the district into that building to receive services?
The only thing that I can tell you is in the year before COVID, so the 2018-19 school year, Blue Point was cited for performance with regards to special education population. We did an appeal. The appeal was upheld where we were not on that targeted list, and thankfully, because we actually would still be on that list at this point, especially with the interruption of testing with COVID. But that appeal was only based on the fact with regards to certain factors that would no longer be applicable. So there is an appeals process. The majority of the appeals are denied. They look at student performance within the subgroup and actually participation rate, which is something we'll have to discuss as too as well as with regards to the community. But for those two things within a specific subgroup in the building, when you're talking that the building has over very high, mid 20% of the special education classification, it's just a matter of time.
But what has occurred that appeal, the way we won that appeal is no longer applicable for years?
Well, it's simple, because the appeal was upheld because what we did was, as I was able to explain, with regards to the time and duration, we went integrated co-teaching and some of the programs were placed at Blue Point, and with regards to what the numbers were at that time. And when I got the appeal back, it was basically explained that this isn't one, it was granted for one time and one time only.
Thank you so much. How are you?
Hi, Christine Perry, parent at Blue Point Elementary. So I just have a couple questions as well. You said about 28% of the students with IEPs, Vital Force, all sorts of things going there. That's at Blue Point Elementary. How many of those students are busing? Because I know it's not all IEPs. I know certain IEPs are in other schools, so there's a percentage.
We can get to that number.
Okay.
I would have to go through every student and see if they have it on their IEP or if they qualify for a bus. I don't know what done that.
Okay. Because just based on a few grades that I am, witness to, I'm aware of certain children that are busing with resilient.
Oh, so the answer to the question is if they're coming from another school,
right?
Okay. So if their home district wasn't Blue Point, then they obviously didn't bus.
Right. Right. So with that being said, I'm wondering what percent that they make up, because if we were to, like you said, pull those children to their home schools, right, they're the ones that they're in district for or zone for, what percentage would actually be pulled from Blue Point Elementary? Because you said 28%, but obviously, I have two of my children have IEPs at Blue Point Elementary, so there's two kids that we say, how many more?
Yeah, but the way you're looking at it is that then you would have the special ed program in all three buildings.
Well, that brings me to another point.
So, for example, let's just use co-teaching, it's the easiest one. So right now, you currently have 4 co-teachers, correct? I want to double check. 4 co-teachers at Blue Point. If you were to mirror the program, that means you would be then putting 4 more at Sylvan, 4 more at Academy. So that would be additional 8 teachers. Then what you're doing is now you're creating co-teaching classes where you have a group of maybe 6 students in a grade. So maybe now it's 1 in one building, 2 in another building, 3 in another building. So that would become, from a district standpoint, I would love to have the special ed continue in every single building, but that would be, that would definitely have a financial impact on the district.
Okay, so I think that moving to Princeton plan would also have a large financial impact on the district, right? So if we're planning on doing something like that, and implementing something like that, maybe we do take the time to financially understand the cost, do a cost analysis comparing the two, switching to having co-teaching in all the buildings versus doing a Princeton plan. And on the presentation from the last board of meeting, you had the budget breakdown from the current model versus the Princeton plan. And we had spoke how that was. Right, so I'm just wondering if you could put an actual number together, because that number didn't reflect keeping those teachers that you said would be most likely reused in some other
Correct, so they would be used if you wanted to, right, to enhance AIS or have special ed in each of those buildings and those type of things. You're correct. And you're correct in saying that the money there would really be no savings, and it could, in the initial beginning, could cost more money. You are correct.
Right, because the number as you had it, which didn't include about 10 teachers, was $500,000 more per year than our current model. That didn't include moving costs. It didn't include refurbishing the K through 1 building where kindergartners have bathrooms in their classrooms. That's a very expensive thing to put in, 6 more bathrooms or however many more bathrooms in classrooms. So I think there's a lot more cost that would affect the community that wasn't presented. And I would like to know more about the benefits. And I know it was kind of vague, like there was going to be a lab for fifth graders. That's really all I took away from it. I didn't really hear the actual benefits of switching to the Princeton model. So
because at that time, as I said even last 2 weeks ago, my goal was really just to present what the committee had put forward so far. That was really it at the time.
Okay, so do we have that prior to making a decision? Would the board have that?
The board wants me to look into more information. I can absolutely do that, but I will leave that to the board.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I'm Dawn Alexander. I'm a parent of 2 children at Academy, president of the BBP sector.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
So some of the things I wanted to say tonight have already kind of been addressed in a way, so I'm just going to jump around a little bit. So I know that we've been talking a lot about more subjective data, some qualitative data, right? We've taken a look at the thoughts and feelings of educators on the enrollment committee in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. And interpretive data is always challenging when examining it in isolation because it only captures a snapshot of what people think and feel. And I think it's really important that we take a look at some quantitative data tonight. So I just wanted to kind of give some information. Thank you, Dr. Harney, for the numbers you gave. I couldn't calculate them as quickly. So I think my numbers are about the same. I took it from your presentation last week. And I think it's important to look at quantitative data because it removes the emotional connection that you have to something, and it goes to something that is objective. So this is some information. So based on that school profile information from 21-22 presented last meeting, 25% of our students in grades K to 5 receive some level of academic intervention services. That means 1 out of every 4 children in elementary across our community requires additional academic remediation to access and benefit from the core curriculum. In addition, 20% of our students in grades K to 5 receive support under a 504 plan or individualized education plan. That means 1 out of every 5 children in elementary across our community has a medical diagnosis, disability, and/or disability, and requires additional support and services to make progress. When a minimum of 25% of our students require additional support and services outside of general education supports, we have to look at ways to be more efficient with our resources. We need to create a continuum of support for all students in each building to provide individual programs, and this is really important, that are based on what students need, rather than what programs and trained staff are available in a building that the student happens to be at. And I think what Dr. Harney was speaking to before is this continuum of services that he's talking about, unless we spend a lot more money, we're going to, this option of reconfiguring our elementary schools may be the only way that we can meet the needs of at least 25% of our students who are not meeting grade level expectation. And that to me, I know I'm president of SEPTA and I have 2 children that benefit a lot from these resources. That to me is something that we have to look at. I can't go based upon my heartstrings that my children deserve to have a quality and effective education here, but if you look at the numbers, it's 25% of our community are not benefiting from the core curriculum. And I think a way to do that is to look at a model where we embrace a few grade levels at a time to foster greater equity for students, increase collaboration for teachers, to create a cohesive curriculum, as well as provide meaningful and streamlined professional development for staff. We really need to look at, as a district, why 25% of our students are not meeting grade level expectations when presented with core curriculum, and why 20% of remedial services continue to need more service than the rest of our peers. Again, our children don't need more, they need better. I kind of went back and forth about this last topic that I want to talk about because I think it's important for a survey to go out to the community so that you get a better understanding, but I just want to put my own personal experience in terms of who I feel should be making the decisions about this. So for many years I've experienced tremendous pain in my knee, right? After countless procedures and doctor's visits, my doctors and I decided it was time for me to have surgery. So this past summer I had a total knee replacement. Throughout the entire process, I have faith and trust that the surgeon and staff at the hospital could carefully and diligently select ways in my best interest and keep to make the best decision about what they were going to do for me at the core of what they were doing. It was at the heart of what they were doing. As we look to decide who should be the one making the decision of whether or not we should restructure our schools, I feel we need to listen and trust the professionals in this case, Dr. Harney, 3 other superintendents, and the Board of Education. Hold on, I can't turn this page about. Okay. I would never have laid down on the operating table this summer and told my surgeon what to do, nor do I feel I should be the one to decide as a community member when my heart is making my decisions, not my head, about what the future of our school should look like. I trust and respect Dr. Harney's ability to provide the Board of Education with sufficient information to help each trustee make an informed decision regarding what is the best for our children and this community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Christine Martin. I have a 5th grader at Sylvan, and I have a 3rd grader over at Blue Point. My 3rd grader has been bounced from Blue Point to Academy to Blue Point for special education services. So I understand where the community can be a little apprehensive about the Princeton plan because you'll have children at different schools. I understand it's such an inconvenience. Before my 3rd grader got into school at kindergarten, I actually joined the PTA at Sylvan, and I've been on the board before even running the Sylvan PTA. So it's hard, I get it. My question would be, for special ed, you're looking at special education and you do nothing about moving the schools within the Princeton plan. The kids who are in Blue Point right now who are under that special education class in the 12s, will they be staying or will you be moving them again? Because transitions are hard for special education students. It's just, in my head, it's not fair to move them when they are grounded and where they are placed. So I don't even know, I'm sorry, I haven't been to board meetings. I will say that first off. So I don't even know what you're going to plan to do with special education, but it is my hope that you don't move the kids who are already in special groups in Blue Point right now.
So I don't have an answer for you. Only reason being is the leadership within our special ed department are working on ideas right now, so I haven't even seen their recommendation or ideas, so we haven't done it. So that's what we had talked about earlier. So if the board would like that type of presentation, we could set it up sometime in November. So I don't know the answer to that one yet.
It would be my hope also that you look into more services for it, especially not just offering 12s, but offering 15s if that comes to the table. I am also a teacher assistant over at Sachem. I know Sachem is a bigger district. We have a lot more student population, but we are able to offer all these services to those kids. I feel that right now because we're such a small district, some of these services are kind of overlooked and not really looked into. So I really hope that that would be something that you can look into, please.
Thank you so much. How are you? You don't have to use it. Just try to speak loud so you pick you up.
I have 3 students at Blue Point Elementary School, and I really enjoyed the special ed cohort, and it would be awesome if they would be able to stay at Blue Point, because I really feel like all the kids get something out of it together and learn from each other. I really understand as well that transitioning, you get
Everyone look at John Kruger right now. Make him feel uncomfortable. Everyone look at Brian Johnson.
I can make you speak louder than that too.
Shut your mouth.
The transitions are extraordinarily hard for all students and also special ed students. So as you were saying, if we did do a different model, it would be important for those kids to start in one spot and end in one spot. And I feel like, by comparison, grade clustering or Princeton plan, I mean, they'd be transitioning every 2 years, which is also not ideal, which brings up to what Alex and Kristen were also saying is I feel like we're looking at 2 different plans when really there also seems to be in the ether, and what I keep on hearing from people is that there's this 3rd plan available, and we haven't really had that discussion in a broader context. And I'm just curious on why a 3rd plan, much more of stable models, isn't being discussed. Also, there are other things that we could do other than hiring all sorts of different teachers. Like, I know I came from one school where all the teachers, assistants on down, were educated in ESL and were also special ed certified. So, and they rotated special ed teachers. I think you and I, Dr. Harney, talked about Hunt Valley School model, and it was similar to that, instead of hiring all new different teachers, but bringing all teachers up to speed on the latest and greatest. I guess the 3rd question I had was the transparency of everything. We talked about, Dr. Harney, I know that you gave the committee, you were the spokesperson for the committee, but you were very clear that you were not making a recommendation. And I'm curious if you and Dr. Fulton were going to make a recommendation on what you felt the board should do, and as the board goes further, is this something that you guys are going to have a closed meeting and discuss these things in a closed board discussion, or are you going to have these discussions openly and vote like in front of people?
We're having that discussion tonight. I have that discussion right now. That was the first time we got the presentation. So to me, the first step would be, does the board want to do a community vote? Does the board want the Princeton plan or grade clustering or a K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 building, whatever word we want to use for it? I think that would be the first conversation. If the conversation is yes, obviously that would be inactive. If the conversation is no, it's no, and then what's next? And I think that's what you heard Dr. Harney talk about tonight. If the conversation moves to a no, and I think the conversation moves to what do we do in order to improve our district without grade clustering? Is that going to be shifting programs and the special ed was used, E&L could be used? What can we do to improve our elementary schools so we have the same experiences in all 3 buildings? So I think we need to answer that first question first before we can move on to the second one.
It's just interesting that you say that, because what you're saying, it's not, I mean, I guess my point is that there is a 3rd plan, so you're kind of forcing people into either doing nothing.
When you say 3rd plan, what do you mean by 3rd plan?
Oh, like what Ms. Garvey was saying, like the stable model of and what Dr. Harney was alluding to, which I also see the drawbacks of. I really feel for parents, and I know other people who started off at one school district, then moved already, and then, my goodness, like moving a 3rd time would be really taxing. Right, so, and then I guess this is a question that I'm getting from other parents who aren't attending the meetings, is when is the decision going to be made? Like, how many conversations will the board have before a meeting? Because, my goodness, like the amount of parental discussion is, well, you don't really need to take this seriously because it's not happening. Or, oh, we've already voted this down, we don't have to show up. Or number 3, like, well, oh my goodness, what is happening and when are they going going to make a decision. It's like kind of nebulous and not very clear how many board meetings we need to show up to. Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying. I kind of said earlier, I alluded to it, this conversation comes up every 3 or 4 years. I think it's always been financially prudent to show how much money they would be saving, so the community would know if we were to move in this direction, this is the amount of money you would save, and then hopefully we can put it out to the community. I can't speak for future boards. This may come up again next year, I don't know, depending on who's on board, but what I can say is, as of right now, we're hoping, we just had our first conversation from our presentation from the committee. There will be a conversation after everyone is done speaking tonight in regards to what are the next steps. So, I mean, you might see a survey come out of the board pretty soon, but I don't know if I can give you an actual answer on how many times this will be discussed, but I do know if this is going to be enacted, it would have to happen soon. So we'll give everybody time to put things in place, meaning the administrative team and also the parents. If it does not move in that direction, I think the board would move in a direction in regards to Dr. Harney, what's next.
Well, and not to put anyone on the spot, and not
We cannot pull the board. If that's a question you're going to ask. It's not, we don't pull the board in regards to pinning each other against. That's not the goal.
So
if this was going to be enacted, you would see a vote by everyone board member up here. You would have to vote, and you would be able to see it be in person. It would be reflected in the minutes, and no one could view this behind the scenes.
that is my question. I'm not asking if that's
Yep.
happening tonight. Just
100%. That vote was to take place. We would let everyone know. Obviously, that would be a highly attended meeting, and people would be able to see how we vote in person.
And then second, and I know you're not going to put you on the spot either about having a recommendation, but is that something that you are even comfortable with or not comfortable with doing?
It's the community decision. Obviously, we take Dr. Harney's recommendations very highly, but at the same time, it's very tough with Dr. Harney's position right now, not knowing how he has all the information from the committee as well. So it's a very tough position to put in there.
All right, well, I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is
Mr. Patrick
Blue Point. Well, first, I want to wish everyone a happy Blue Point Elementary Day. Today's the 93rd anniversary. I know 3 years ago, actually, goal was a big thing for us, so today was the day. Second is, my wife couldn't be here tonight. She wanted to be here, but tonight was my daughter's birthday, so we figured something.
Just so you know, Mr. Ruba, sorry to cut you off, but you've got a couple questions I'm going to read from her.
Oh, okay.
Unless you're reading, you want to read it.
Perfect.
I'm going to read it in a second.
All right, excellent. I have a few questions. You know, hearing everything tonight, it kind of sounds like we should have done a special ed committee. Is the board open to doing something like that? I mean, we spent 4.5 years on enrollment, and it seems the big issues are special education. So I would maybe consider, I know the board has many other committees, maybe we should do a special ed committee and get the community involved, get the sector involved. So let's see what we can do. Instead of making it always to be about special education now. That's not really what I thought the enrollment committee was. And I've been reading about it for the last 4.5 years. And I also want to thank you tonight, Mr. Miller, for listening to the majority of the community in 2011, 2019, and 2022, saying that the community doesn't want this, the majority. And I appreciate you saying that and actually seeing what the community really wants. So thank you. And I do have a question. If you do the survey, I know in 2019 when we did this presentation, there was the talk of alternate start times. Would that be on the survey to let people know that their kids would be going at different times, or is that gone? Because I didn't see that on the 2022 survey presentation.
The committee didn't do it on this one. The reason we did it on the first one was to see if we could find additional savings at that time. It probably would have to become part of the conversation.
Right.
Just because of the 3 starts, if families were split up, it probably would have to, but we did not really discuss that this time around.
Okay.
We were staying away from this savings piece.
Right, yeah, I just hope that would be put on the survey for the community to let everyone know that there's going to be different times, different buses, and everything else. So hopefully this can end soon, because my daughter was in preschool when this enrollment committee started, and actually in 4th grade, so we'll see how much longer it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any other community members?
back for my dollar.
So they say, that's true.
I love the way we're speaking about this conversation and the way we're presented with it. Dr. Honey uses the words like pros, he uses challenges. I know I speak pros and cons, which are good bets, but we have challenges with our challenges. We all know, the elephant in the room, that the majority of our school district does not want us to have it. And as a board, I've been told that we would like to have a survey. There's the challenges that Mr. Harney said, Dr. Harney said, that he only can speak or reach out to the people within the school district. But I happen to know somebody as a local paper that might be able to help. You can listen to other people, other demographics that we might be able to reach out and then get a broad perspective of what happens in our community. I think what we're looking at is what do we want for a community? And the community also wants what's best for our kids. Every single parent wants what's best for their kids. Whether it's special needs or non-special needs, they all, and especially special needs extra help. That's a given. So we're looking at what's the best for our children and what we want from our school district and to find out how our school district feels. And I think a survey would do that for us. I understand the councilman, the lawyer said that it's not a vote, but it still kind of is a vote. And when we vote it out, how we can try to get it out, we can try to do something like that. Will you have to take that survey? You don't. You understand that. But it is what the feeling of the community is. And I think that's what should be heard. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Any other community members? Jennifer Stantz asked, how much would busing cost if we were to adopt the full Princeton plan? Obviously, every elementary school student should be offered busing for at least 4 years if it was put in place. So what I can tell you from the presentation, as Mr. Rotella noted in here as well, in the comment section, it was approximately $500,000. But what I will say is the district this year added additional 4 buses for $360,000, so you can look at it about $90,000 per bus. Just so we're aware, about $90,000 per bus. Christina H. writes, will the board/superintendent provide a list of commitments and the priorities of the community should the prison plan be implemented? I don't want to speak for the board or Dr. Harney, but I will say that if the grade clustering were to be put into place, yes, you would obviously know exactly what to expect the next school year. If something was implemented, you would know exactly what building and what program to be offered. The last meeting, presented several opportunities like a science lab, expanded resource room, library, etc. Nothing was definitive. Yeah, so I think Dr. Harney answered that one a little while ago. There would have to be additional research put into place if we were going to start looking at what the additional opportunities that would be provided if we were to go in that direction. Yes, the committee talked about a couple ideas. Mr. Rotella says, will the board and the superintendent explain how they will be reducing salary positions? It's not the layoff, as the superintendent said at the last meeting. As the superintendent said last meeting, there will be no layoffs. So I don't think we're there yet in regards to reducing salary positions. I think the first conversation would be does the school district and the trustees and superintendent want to move in this direction? So I think if we were moving in that direction, I think we would be able to provide that answer for you. Are we just hoping for 9 elementary teachers to retire in 1 year? No, I mean, everybody retires when they feel comfortable and when the funds are ready. So every year we have approximately, I would say, 4, 2 or 3. A couple thank yous and a couple thank yous to the students who received awards tonight. Going back to what Mr. Root said, perhaps the committee, there should be a committee to focus on special ed, to increase achievement, not to punish families, as Mr. Rotella in our K-5 district for their shortcomings. Who is in charge of the curriculum? Mr. Miss Lisa Davis, kids want to be with their siblings and parents, caregivers don't want to do multiple drop-offs. Thank you guys so much. Not hearing any questions, I'll put it back to the board. I know we've had a conversation about a survey, we've pretty much heard everyone's perspective on that. I would say we either put to a motion or we have a conversation about it, so we decide if we want to move in the direction of a survey or not. Any conversations with trustees about survey again?
I do have a question. If there's, and Dr. Harney, you probably don't have an answer for this right now, but is there a possibility that by the November 15th meeting, we could have some information about what the future of special ed placements would look like within the district if we were to keep the buildings as K-5s? Because that seems to be a recurring question from the community. It seems to be something the community wants to know to inform their decisions. I think separately, those with comment regarding the parent who wrote in regarding increasing special education achievement or punishing others for shortcomings. I don't think that that's really what the conversation is about, and I just feel I just feel the need to highlight that any conversation about special education has to do with providing the best possible services for the children. It's not achievement driven, and we're not talking about shortcomings. We're talking about leveling the playing field for children who have different educational needs and doing that in the most effective way possible. So, Dr. Harney, if you'd be able to speak with the staff about what that might look like for us, I think that would be really meaningful for us and for the community.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to commit to it this second in terms of if I could have a presentation for that night, but I do believe we could give it a good effort, and I could put it into the newsletters, and then just like when I was going back and forth when we were trying to do the enrollment, just like I always do, I would put it out to the community, when what's coming that night, so I would put it out that we were going to do a, special ed presentation or something like that, so we could aim to try to do that. As I said, I would have to speak to the leadership within the special ed department.
Do we have any issues or concerns about the presentation by Dr. Harney this next month? All right, going back to the survey. Kind of just heard my perspective on the survey. I don't think we need to do one. I think it's very clear, but if the board wants to do one, I would suggest someone put a motion forward so we can decide if we're going to do this or not. On the survey, I would suggest put a motion.
I think a motion for a vote.
A second. I don't know whether we want that.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Pintora, we have a second by Mr. Johnson for a community survey discussion. Dr. Harney, timelines on a survey? I don't know, he likes that question. So, timeline of the survey, and I would say timeline of the survey and what questions are going to be posed in the survey, how long is the survey? So this is going to, I can see this taking a while.
I'm going to say at least probably 30 days at least.
30 days before was that?
Before I draft.
30 days before. All right, so what would you need from the board, community, to make this survey happen? Or maybe we can look into it.
Yeah.
If the board decides on survey, we will get some update.
I would take information from you right now, and if you would want to include it, and I would try to craft it. I would have to most likely, again, speak with probably syntax, because this is probably not going to be a Google form. It's probably not.
We want to make sure Ms. Benton gets some information. We might have to contact.
What I could do, just know what I could do, is one, I would take any feedback you have right now about something you want to try to include, to give you an update on the 15th. Saying that, then we can also try to do the special ed presentation that night as well, and then kind of continue this. That would probably be my best guess.
All right, so you want to open up for questions whenever you sign?
I'm asking is if, again, I guess you have to still have your vote. If the vote is to do a survey, then I would like a discussion about what you would like to see within the survey. So at least I can start to work with syntax about how we're looking to do this, what makes the most sense, present them to the local specialists.
Anybody would like a survey, any questions you'd like added, or anything that you can think of you might want to consider, and start thinking to Dr. Harney, start thinking about those prior to next week. So, any other questions or comments before we vote? I would just say I don't think that the survey is going to give us the information that would make us vote yes. So I don't know why we would do that. I do think we should look into the shifting of programs, but I'm not in favor of the survey. I know I seem to be in the minority here, and that's fine. So I will say, all in favor? Opposed? So it'll be 6-1. Thank you guys so much, Dr. Harney. The board will look into getting you questions, and the community members, if there's anything you can think of that you would suggest, I would say emails, and we will try to put something together for the 15th, and then after that, hopefully we'll have some questions in general, where we can utilize syntax.
Probably what I would do is reach out to syntax and see if they are capable of helping with this, and then try to get some samples, see if there's other people who have done something similar, and try to bring you some of that. That's probably what I'll have for you on the 15th. I don't think we'll have a sample survey that day, so I don't want to mislead anybody. I don't want people to think that that's going to happen.
We'll just have maybe a better way of saying that we'll have ideas for next time.
Right. And then at the same time, I'll try to get you the special ed presentation. And then if we're able to do that, I'll inform the community that they will do.
Thank you so much. Any other trustees' conversation about the enrollment committee? Not hearing any. Thank you so much. We'll turn it over to Dr. Harney, Dr. Fulton, for the private survey.
All right, I know it's late, so I guess my question is to you, would you like us to go forward with the presentation tonight? Or would you like us to do it? This is really an update on the survey. There's no mandatory piece for this. It's basically an update of the survey that we have given our 8th, 10th, and 12th graders.
That's Dr. Harney's nice way of saying we can wait till next time.
No, just giving information.
Right. I'm good with holding off, so you just say do it for 2 presentations next time, there'd be the survey results, and then it would be a special ed.
So then why don't we do this one here then? Because this way we get this one done, because then I don't want us to be held up next time. So let's do this next time. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Fulton. We're going to kind of go through this survey. It's information that we gathered from our students, and it's really on basically risky behaviors. It's a survey that we've done in the past, and we'll try to give an update to the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Fulton.
Good evening. So as part of participation in the Great South Bay Coalition, the funding is we've actually now surveyed our students. This is the second time that we've given the survey. We actually surveyed students in 8th grade, 10th grade, and 12th grade. The idea is we give the survey to follow the cohort, so when the 8th grade then gets into 10th grade, we'll survey, 10th grade gets into 12th grade, we'll survey, so we can actually follow the cohort as they go through their journey through the school district. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to begin to take a look at the results, look at some of the risk and protective factors when it comes to at-risk behaviors for students, and particularly for the survey, this would be utilization of drugs, alcohols, and/or substances. What can we do moving forward as parents and guardians, educators, and community members? As always, with our district goals, we try to align anything we do with our goals, and for us, this really focuses on environment, resources, and connections with students. So the Great South Bay Coalition, established in 2015 with the mission to promote mental and physical health initiatives to reduce youth substance abuse. And they received the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration Grant in 2018, which funds events and initiatives to support the youth not only in Bayport, but also Seattle as well. So the required survey questionnaire is administered to assess and evaluate student behaviors and perceptions on topics that affect student achievement and well-being. And then the presentation was posted and included with the Great South Bay Coalition, and if you want to follow on social media. So the survey demographics this was administered last spring. 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students. The total number of students surveyed was 337. And then approximately almost 40% 8th and 10th grade. We did have a lower participation rate with our 12th grade students, only 21 some of the most important core measures is that we found the perception of parent-disapproval use, that the percentage of students who report their parents or guardians who feel it's wrong or very wrong. Perception of friends disapproval use. We also reported 30-day use, percent of students reported use in the last 30 days, and also student perception of risk. The percent of students report that drug was moderate or great risks. Some keynotes that to be able to use to help us understanding. Location and time of drug use labs to help understanding the need for a commitment to drug abuse prevention for the entire community. And also, some of the things that we've seen is that some of the student utilization of alcohol and other drugs occur most often outside of school and at times when school is not in session, so it really reinforces that partnership with the community. Received form of alcohol and other drugs helps us understand false assumptions that students might have related to substance abuse, and also when drugs are perceived as harmless, the probability of use increases. And then also research does indicate that easy access and availability of drugs increases the probability of use, and availability of alcohol and drugs normally increases at the higher grade levels, specifically high school seniors. So for annual use, so remember these are percentages outlined for the actual cohort, for the people that were actually surveyed. And as you can take a look, as there's a trend with tobacco, e-cigarettes, alcohol, and illicit drugs, there's an increase as students journey from 8th, 10th to 12th grade. Alcohol and then illicit drugs seeing sizable increases. Annual use, we took a look, is again marijuana, and then there's also cocaine, inhalants, and hallucinogens. One of the things in our contact in my communication with the required survey for the South Bay Coalition is we do believe that that marijuana category will be broken down even further in future surveys, because now there's an increase in the market with the legalization of marijuana, edibles, and other types of way that marijuana. So you'll notice that right now this survey only references marijuana and doesn't necessarily delineate the different ways that students partake. And so that's an acknowledged weakness with regards to the survey. Again, annual use continue to see low percentages for prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, and opioid painkillers. Then heroin, steroids, ecstasy, meth, also non-utilization or low utilization. Remember, this is a survey that's based upon students self-reporting their use within the survey. Past 30-day usage, as you can take a look, again, higher percentages from the end of respondees for high school seniors. But again, following that same pattern with e-cigarettes and alcohol, and then consideration of illicit drugs. Marijuana also past 30-day utilization, self-reported high, 30-some-odd percent with our senior group. And again, the other drugs, either non-utilization or extremely low utilization. Prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, this would be something that would be interesting to see as we continue to do the survey with those patterns, because we do know the use of over-the-counter prescription drugs, specifically opioids and painkillers, is something that on a national level is an area of concern. Continuing heroin, steroids, ecstasy, and meth. Students' perception of risk, this is something very important because as again, students perceive the higher risk, the hypothesis is that you'll have a lower degree of utilization. And also students' perception of risk, you can take a look and see significant if efforts to educate within school is having an impact on students. And as you take a look here, cigarettes, we do have a high perception of risk. And again, cigarettes, and then we have to connect that with vaping as we take a look as you continue, because those two things are interrelated. Sometimes students do believe that cigarettes is a higher risk than actually for vaping. It's just studies show that vaping does have a high degree of medical risk as well. Again, high degree of perception for risk of use of e-cigarettes. So again, that's got an emphasis within our health curriculum to be able to emphasize to students that vaping is not a safer alternative to cigarette use. Perception again for drinks, for alcohol, again delineated 1 to 2 times a week. Pretty increase, and if you notice that for the seniors, they had it from 8th grade or 10th grade, they had a decrease in the students' perception of risk. So that's an interesting, something for further follow-up to see if that's an outlier, or if it's because of the lower denominator of students that partook in the surveys in 10th grade compared to seniors. So again, now as we go through again smoke and marijuana, we see a decrease in risk as the students get older, again with regards to what perceptions are. So you should see a slight risk, but from moderate to great risk, you do see a decline. Prescription drugs not prescribed to you, generally acknowledged, high majority of students view it as a moderate or great risk. Opioid painkillers, again, high and moderate to great risk. Again, the higher the perception of risk, the lower the degree of utilization. Where do you use is a conversation question, and so to take a look as we're going through for tobacco, for the respondents is that those students reported utilization of cigarettes. When you take a look for where do you use, the numbers really don't coincide. So this is sometimes we get weaknesses of students self-reporting. They're acknowledging that they're either smoking or utilizing tobacco, but yet when you add up the percentages of where do they use, it doesn't add up to the percentage of the students that are using. So weakness. E-cigarettes, if you take a look, car and friend's house are the strongest. And we're going to get into this whole idea of utilization in car, because obviously, especially with drivers, for seniors, for that's something that distracted driving could not just be just texting or fiddling with the radio. Distracted driving could also be if you're using a cigarette or a vaping device. For alcohol, again, friend's house was the strongest, and then other, and then you'll see that not utilizing a car, but the friend's house. That's always the conversation with the parent to know, hey, I'm going to a friend's house. And with regards to, is that house supervised at the time when you're at the friend's house, and what are the activities they're doing. Marijuana, again, friend's house, and though not lower numbers than compared to friend's house, utilization of marijuana in a car does lead to driving unimpaired. So again, the senior response rate that there's marijuana use in a car is something that we would obviously want to look into further. Prescription drugs not prescribed to you, again, extremely low percentages with regards to not adding up to some of the numbers with regards to reporting. So our students, with the way the survey is designed, not necessarily making a connection to self-reported use and or then where they're utilizing. So those numbers are really consistent. Again, the same for opioid painkillers. So some other key points for us to realize is the overwhelming majority of students who reported utilization of drugs and alcohol do so on the weekends. That significantly came across. E-cigarettes and cigarettes are utilized more so after school, weekends, weeknights, and weekends. Friend's house and home is most often identified as a location of use. And vaping and marijuana location of utilization also includes car for high school seniors, and that is 14 and 15% respectively. And again, that is something that we feel is something to look into, especially as with regards to safety of the people themselves and also being on the road within our community. Some other key points continued is that we did take a look, because the idea is that the more students are involved in activities, the less likely that they would be partaking in some of these adverse behaviors. And as you can see, that students self-reported that from a strong majority of students, sometimes, often, and a lot, our students are, we do have a high percentage of students that are participating in school activities. In addition, we took a look for community activities and to see, the school, in the community, there's also a number of organizations within the community with regards to taking part. So our students take part more in school activities than community activities, but we still have a lot of students that participate either sometimes, often, or a lot. Some other key points: taking part in sports teams. Again, we take a look at this question again, with regards to sometimes weaknesses in design. If a student plays one sport, sometimes these sports are year-round now with some of the specialization that requires. So I'd be interested to see the follow-up questions with a little more specificity, but we do have a large number of students that are taking part in sports teams. Some protective factors is over 84% of our students report making good grades, often or a lot. 76% of our students take part in sports to some degree, and 58% take part in school activities. 88% of our students reported never or seldom getting in trouble at school, and 70% of our students report that our teachers talk about the dangers of drugs regularly, and that 69% that parents and guardians talk about the dangers of drugs and utilization of some of these substances. And 72% of the respondents report that parents and guardians set clear rules, often or a lot, when it comes to what expectations are on home with their choices with regards to drugs and alcohol. Drug use was higher in a few students who report parents and guardians never or seldom set clear rules. So as we continue to have information programs and things like that, it reinforces the need for the community and for the partnership with the school that we're consistently in the message with regards to some of these harmful decisions and behaviors that students potentially could be exposed to. Some risk factors is the majority of students report using drugs are rarely involved in community activities, and the majority of students who report using drugs report getting in trouble often at school, and the majority of students who report using drugs say that parents or guardians never set or seldom set clear rules. Accessibility, 47% of seniors reported it's easy to get marijuana, 65% of seniors reported it's easy to get alcohol, and 48% of seniors report it's very easy to get e-cigarettes. So again, that partnership and education within the community. If you go to kids and say, hey, where can you get some vaping devices, where can you go and purchase alcohol and things like that, kids talk and sometimes they get an idea of where these things are, so that's where you want that partnership within the community. Moving forward, we're going to continue information dissemination and education within the district. In the past, we've done it. We work through again with the student presentations where our students go into the classrooms and work with the younger students. Continue to share parent and guardian information programs. And we always are constantly looking at continued curriculum revisions, professional development for staff, specifically as it relates to our health curriculum, and also how can we embed these conversations in some of our other coursework too as well. So it's not the healthy life choices and decisions aren't just occurring in our health and our physical education classes. Do a continual administration of the survey, and the more times that we do the survey will also allow for an opportunity for some longitudinal analysis to identify patterns for the cohorts as they continue to proceed through their journey through the Bay Port Bluepoint School District. So I know I hit everybody with a ton of information, especially on the night where we've had a long discussion, but I thank you for your time, and I open it up to any questions.
Any trustee questions? Any community members questions? Not hearing any, Dr. Paul, thank you so much, which we appreciate that feedback, and it's really eye-opening. Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to accept consent agenda items G, H, I, J, K, and L.
So moved.
Ms. Conley, second? Second. Ms. Conlon, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for the regular agenda items 1 through 5? Ms. Conlon, second. Ms. Cerrone, just so everyone knows, that is, the first one is the second reading of policy 1530, smoking and tobacco and nicotine use. The second reading of policy 2410, formulation, adoption, and amendment of the policies. This came out from the last time, and we wanted to make sure there was always 2 readings, regardless if it is a new or old policy. School admissions and residency requirements, second reading of policy 5150, the second reading of policy 8410, transportation, and acceptance of a campus donation from the Bayport Bluepoint Foundation for 3 middle school students to attend Frost Valley Trip for $855. So we're so thankful to them and giving those 3 students an opportunity that they would have not had otherwise. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. At this time, we'll open up to any community members for new business. I thought we were out here, Mr. Lungs. Yeah. Yeah.
In hearing what was going on about special ed presentation, I think the survey coming at the same time before that presentation was a good part of the course, right? So what we heard today was we would like to see some other options. I guess the great question is, it's not moving forward. What are other options? Community, what are the financial impacts? How do we better serve our special ed community? How do we level of service to the cost? And I think one great action to take after the question that provide value on service, hear that presentation, ask questions, give feedback to that, and then forward the questions. I think do it at the same time so that it makes
I think we have a conversation. I don't know if we have a deadline on when the survey is going to go out. Obviously, we'd like it. No. So I think we're just going to start formalizing the questions now, but as you said, we'll obviously go to add more when the conversation from Dr. Harney comes forward for the survey. Thank you, sir. Any other committee members? Not hearing any trustee new business. We have a motion to adjourn.
No, wait.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
too fast.
Sorry.
Sorry, now I'm extending it, but it's all for good reasons. I had, no, that was valid. Say, we're both extending. I like to try to highlight some positive things. I was able to attend the welcome dinner for about 20 visiting French students. And I wanted to thank Madame Allen for setting it up and all the host families for making this experience possible. They had a Thanksgiving dinner with also some pasta in there for the students who weren't into that. And it's just a very unique way to learn about a different culture, and some of our students will get to go visit them in, I will butcher it because I speak Spanish, but I think it's Toulouse, France. So that's really neat. I got to sit with some of them at the football game and have football and cheerleading explained. They called them Palm Girls. It was just amusing. Staying in that lane, I wanted to congratulate, Emily said before, congratulate our undefeated varsity football team who's moving into playoffs. They went 7-0 in the regular season and they're the only undefeated team in our division. I attended senior night last Friday and it was heartwarming to see. I've watched this group of senior football players since I was on the youth football board, and they've been fantastic this whole time through. I'm so excited that these about 20 athletes are having this phenomenal end to their BBP athletic journey. Sorry, there's only 3 more. Over the weekend, I also got to attend the One Act Play Festival, put on by a lean group of 7 student actors who were just phenomenal, and I'd like to thank them for sharing their talents and commitment with us, and thank you to their advisors, Ms. Everhart and Mr. McMullen. I also want to thank the community for coming out to homecoming. It was a wonderful day to just celebrate our community. And lastly, thank you to the students who spoke tonight and shared their artwork and our talented musicians, and congratulations to the students who received the Community Service Awards. They represent thousands of hours giving back to their community, and I really thank them for their efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Thank you, trustees. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate everything you guys have done. Thank you guys for staying tonight. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Pignataro? Mr. Johnson, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Have a good night, guys. We'll see you next month.